Yoink. Hey guys, what's up? Everybody hear me? Can y'all hear me? Hello. How you doing, Rick? You guys can't hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, you guys do hear me. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, you know, I got in late today and started working on a video, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get it done in time for today, so I'll just do a live stream working on the video and upload it tomorrow morning or something. Yeah, I saw this ridiculous video of Biden today, and I just had to do a video of it. So you shouldn't let me know if you hear me or you hear the when I'm working on a video. You shouldn't hear that part. I'm gonna mute that from here on out, but because it gets confusing. You guys don't know if I'm talking or if it's coming from the video. Oh, it's not coming through my right speaker. Where is it? Don't even see it. Oh, geez. Sorry, guys. I'm going to have to connect my... Oh, my. Sorry, I got to do this real quick. Apparently my... One second, guys. I'm trying to get my headphones working here. Oh, did my headphones die? Oh well, whatever. I can hear it on my speakers sitting there. You can't hear me. Who's saying they can't hear me? This looks like you should be hearing me. No, you guys are seeing. So I turned the sound off of my video that I'm making because people kept confusing me, but apparently you're still confused. The window that you see there, the window that you guys are seeing there is not me. That's just the video I'm working on. So I wasn't going to put my video up. Here, I'll pop it up just so you can see me here for a second. You can see I'm actually here. See? Ah. I'm just working on the video, though. That's what you guys are watching. I didn't want to really be on camera today. Whoa. There we go. It's going in and out. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. Yeah. All right. Anyway, yeah, that's not a good look. Joe Biden is running for president and that he's predicting. Finally, I can't tell you how excited. I cannot tell you. Finally, I can't tell you how excited I am that 78-year-old creepy Joe Biden is running for president and he's predicted to be the front runner. I'm just working on the video and I don't want you to get confused as to if it's me talking or if it's coming from the video I'm working on. You understand? If I have the audio from both, you're going to think that my audio is all jacked up. It's all working fine. You're just hearing me. Here, I'll tell you what I'll do. Oh, wait. My video is showing up down there. Okay. Okay, so you can see there's two of me now, okay? Yeah. I wasn't going to put my video in. But I'll go ahead and do it since that will... So you guys won't be so confused. Biden tweeted out an official announcement today. If I can listen to this one. Biden tweeted out the official announcement today, along with a video where he makes several false claims. And And it's no coincidence that these alternative facts are the very same ones that are constantly parroted by the Democrat Party media.
Well, I don't know why that's not working. I have Bluetooth headphones that just aren't going to work, I guess.
One of the more egregious lies, and one that really... Biden tweeted out the official announcement today, along with a video where he makes several false claims. Biden tweeted out the official announcement today, along with a video where he makes several false claims. You guys can see how did I bang my head? No. Guys, look, when you have white lights on your head, on your face like this, it like accentuates every defect you have, which is why people that are on camera typically wear makeup. But I'm not wearing makeup. I don't have anybody that can put makeup. My wife could probably do it, and she's actually suggested that she do it, but I don't. I'd rather not wear makeup. So that's why, no, I did not get hit in the head. I know what you mean, though. It's like all red and stuff. I need some of my moderators. And he's predicted to be the front runner. Biden tweeted out the official announcement today, along with a video where he makes. Yeah, you guys get double the pleasure. And it's no coincidence that these alternative facts are the very same ones that are constantly parroted by the Democrat Party media. This video, guys, will be up tomorrow morning. I'm not going to get it done today in time, so I just decided to... Max Headroom style. What are you talking about? Because of this, yeah. Go. Yeah, Max Headroom. I gotcha. Yes, 2 Dronetek. You get double the pleasure, guys. Double the fun. One of the more egregious lies, and one that really gets on my nerves, is several false claims. And it's no... You guys can see how tedious coincidence that these alternative facts... A lot of people want me to do longer videos. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you need to do longer. You need to do longer. Guys, you don't realize how much time it takes to put together a short video. Sometimes when I get into like the 7-minute long videos... 3 drones. Oh, thanks for your input, Levi, but people are watching. There's 30 people watching right now, so, and you're here. And these alternative facts are the very same ones that are constantly parroted by the... You guys ever watch Atheism is Unstoppable? He works on videos too. I think he's probably more entertaining to watch, though. Is that Trump once called neo-Nazis very fine people. And it's no very same ones that are constantly parroted by the Democrat Party media. One of the more egregious lies, and one that really gets on my nerves, is that Trump once called... So did you guys see the Biden... Did anybody see the Biden video today? His announcement video? It's just... Oh my god, it's so cringy. Neo-Nazis very fine people. Nerves is that Trump once called neo-Nazis very fine people. If you guys stick around, I'm probably going to have some of my favorite people on here at some point once they show up. Like SJG Perspective and possibly Robert Noir as well. You know, I like to have those guys on. I don't know if he's going to show up, though. I haven't really heard from either of them. But yeah, so Biden was basically just saying that, oh, Trump, you know, during Charlottesville, this crucial moment in our country's history, Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. Okay, that never happened. Never happened. And that's what this video is going to be about. I've done videos about it before, but I'm going to do it again. Journalism is dead. Yeah, I agree, man. Oh my god. What, Nicole Wallace? What in the hell? Like, there's something wrong with her. Like, she just does not seem... They all seem like they're all off the rocker, but her especially. God. You all are cracking me up. Is that Trump once called neo-Nazis very fine people? I've talked about this before, but the media purposely edited footage of that press conference to make the claim, and Biden is just repeating it. Maybe I shouldn't work on a video and do this because... Yeah, I wasn't even gonna have video because it's confusing. It's very fine people. I've talked about this before, but the media... Whoa, what happened there? You see why this is tedious? It's supposed to snap, and it snapped like just in front of it. These very fine people. I've talked about this before, but see, and so I got to go through. When I first started doing these, people were giving me shit for my jump cuts, so I've just been like super tedious about them. I've talked about this before. I'll get to the videos here in a second. 1 second. People. I've talked about this before, but the media purposely edited footage of that press conference to make the claim, and Biden is just repeating it. Yeah, I wish that my people would show up. They probably will. I'm gonna stream for probably about an hour. So if you guys aren't doing anything better, whoa, you're bored. Yeah, my desktop's white because it actually helps, like, white light on my face, you know? I got 2 big lights here, but the monitors help as well when you just put a white screen on them. I don't know if any of you are into doing YouTube or doing videos like this, but that's a tip that I picked up, and it's actually a really good one. If you got monitors, your monitors are just LCD. You put on a white background, and it's like an LCD light, and it works almost as good. Like if I were to put a green background on here, check this out. You'll see like a green hue on my face. It's kind of neat. Or like red. Can you see how it's kind of casting like a red kind of light on me? Or like blue. We'll do blue. The Antifa teacher, I think he was prosecuted. I want to say that he was, but you know what? I think all he got was like community service or something. It was not severe. He didn't get any kind of, he could have killed that guy, but no, yeah, he didn't get any kind of severe punishment. And that's why I think the future is going to be dangerous, fellas, all of you watching, because what they're setting up right now is basically that it's okay to attack Trump or his supporters. I did a thing today, and I'll show it to you here real quick if I can find it. Let me find it here real quick. And where is it? Where is it? Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now. But there was a story about the DNC chair today literally saying, we're at war with Russia, and Trump is... Oh, there it is. So check this out, guys. I'm going to pop this over. And I'll even turn on sound here so you can hear it. Oh, you should be able to actually hear it. Okay. Yeah, listen to this.
We are doing something that has never been done before. It's the old.
After this commercial. But yeah, you'll see Tom Perez, the DNC chair, said that Trump is, quote, compromised. And says that we're at war with Russia. We were at war now. Oh, he did say it's a cyber war. I actually didn't catch that part before. But when you're saying that the president is compromised and that we're at war now, and then he prefaces it by saying, or not prefaces it, but he says afterwards that it's a cyber war. Come on. Why are you saying we're at war now? When you say we're at war now, that invokes certain imagery. And it also... it gives the crazy people on the left all the justification they need to commit violence against people that they hate. And I can almost guarantee somebody's going to take a shot at Trump. And you might forget, but there's already been 2 times now where somebody tried to rush at Trump. There was a kid, I think, that tried to rush the stage and was gonna stab him or something. And then there was a guy that was gonna shoot him. Both of them were, I think the second guy was caught before he got to Trump, but hey, that's Robert. He might come on. Y'all like Robert Noir? Yeah, America is at war with itself, and we're likely heading towards a civil war. Unfortunately, I don't want to, but it's where we're headed. Unfortunately. Biden's just repeating it. Okay, so I have a video here now where I need Biden. I need to get Biden. I need Joe Biden. Where is the Biden video? Oh, there it is. I got it. Looks like I'm going to have to actually go to the page here.
Charlottesville, Virginia is home to the author of one of the great documents in human history. We know it by heart. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've heard it so often, it's almost a cliche, but it's who we are. We haven't always lived up to these ideals. Jefferson himself didn't, but we have never before walked away from them.
And real quick here, and I think that's kind of interesting right there, where he says Jefferson, Jefferson wouldn't have been a great example role model. That's interesting that he chose Jefferson, only because, and especially because he's talking about Charlottesville, or he's about to get into Charlottesville. But so the Charlottesville thing, after that happened, Trump was interviewed. He did a press conference where he famously said both sides had good people or whatever. So before he even got to that point, he was talking about the fact that there were people there to protest taking down of a monument that weren't neo-Nazis. They weren't with Unite the Right. Okay? And he was very specific about that, and even went further to condemn the Nazis, right? He condemned them. And even so, they still claim he was calling neo-Nazis verified people, which he clearly wasn't. But during that exchange, Trump goes on about who's next? Is it Washington? Is it Jefferson? Because he owned slaves. He's like, he owned slaves. Is Jefferson next? Of course, one of the people in the reporter pool, if you watch that, and I might play a clip here of it, but one of the people that were in the reporter pool were like, nobody's going after Jefferson. Kind of like, that's not going to happen. Look it up. Google it. I'll Google it right now. They're going after Jefferson now, which I find interesting that he brought that up. But anyway.
Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years.
It was not a defining moment. It wasn't. And this is all going to be in my video. I've just decided I'm going to work on this video later because it is too hard to talk to you guys and work on it. And like somebody else said, the final product is going to suffer probably. But it was not a defining moment. Charlottesville was a one-off thing. It wasn't necessarily one-off, but let's look. Oh my God, why do people keep bugging me? It was a group of right-wing idiots, a group of far-right, right-wing idiots going up against a group of far-left idiots, Antifa communist idiots, all right? Here's the fact of the matter is no matter how much you can disagree with Unite the Right or neo-Nazis or whatever, which I do, I don't agree with them, they had a right to be there. They had a permit, and they were exercising their free speech. Who showed up to become, to be tyrants? It was Antifa. Antifa showed up for the purposes of instigating a fight, and they got it. And yet, it's always framed the other way. It's always framed, the neo-Nazi. Look, again, I disagree with them, but they had every right to be there. Their free speech rights were trampled, and somebody ended up getting killed. And it was a white girl, by the way. They act like a black man was lynched in Charlottesville or something. That's not what happened. One idiot ran his car into a bunch of people and ended up killing one white person. I'm not saying, that's a horrible thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but let's not blow this up into something it isn't, which is what the media and the Democrats have been doing since it happened. I mean, they've tried their damnedest to make it almost like 9/11. We can never forget, Biden says that we can never forget Charlottesville. Really? I'm happy to forget it. Why should we remember it? It was, again, one group of idiots fighting with another group of idiots, and idiot prizes were won. So anyway, moving on from that.
It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo.
I just want to point out real quick, at the beginning there, you saw the tiki torches. Okay, that was a completely separate event. That was not Charlottesville. Okay, the media has done this exact same, and you guys know I always talk about the Democrats and the media coordinating and on talking points, and we know that they do this. This is not a secret. There have been multiple incidents where they've been exposed coordinating with Democrats. There was Journalist. I talk about Journalist all the time. Okay, Journalist was a private forum started by not Dan Abrams. I can't remember his name. I'll get it for you. He's a big journalist, an MSNBC guy. He started this private forum where journalists and Democrats coordinated on talking points, on defenses for Obama. They were, the whole thing was about coordinating for Obama and attacks on his critics. Okay, which is what we witnessed. That's what happened during the 8 years of Obama. They circled their wagons around Obama and they attacked and discredited his critics, which is what happens. So you have a Republican president, it's, we are defenders of democracy, and we're going to go after and hold this president to account. They only do that when a Republican's in office. Okay, when there's a Democrat in office, it's the exact opposite. They circle the wagons, attack the critics. Okay, so you can, and another pattern is anytime Democrats lose, it's a conspiracy. There's some conspiracy behind it. But when they win, the media gives the all clear. Oh, no, it was perfect. We won, so it was good. But what I was saying is that the Tiki Torches, that was a separate event. Okay, that wasn't Charlottesville. CNN, I did a video when they did it, but Chris Cuomo also conflated these two events. And they're completely different events. And it's funny, I got into an argument with some journalist from MSNBC, actually, on Twitter over it, and he conceded that all he would concede is that the footage didn't go with it. Even though I nailed him down on the Trump thing, he wouldn't concede that, because he kept saying, oh, well, if you're at a rally where there's neo-Nazis, then you're in with them. That's bullshit, okay? If there's tons of Democrats at rallies with Antifa, that doesn't make all Democrats communists, even though I think a lot of us probably think that they are. Hey, Robert. Oh, Robert's here. Sweet. Hey, Robert, I'm going to bring you in here in just a minute, as soon as I get through this point here real quick. But, yeah, so Joe Biden is being deceptive right off the bat with this, okay? That was not the same event. And we're going to move on here. I want to bring Robert in here real quick. Robert, let me call you here. I'll just bring you in, Robert, and we'll just bullshit. I love having you on here. It's a lot better when you have two people you can bounce stuff off of, so I'm not just ranting here. Sorry, I always have to figure out what I'm doing here. Video call Robert, the man, the myth, the legend. So anyway, we'll go ahead and continue on this video.
It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torches, veins bulging, and bearing the fangs of racism.
Okay, look. This was like 200 people. There was like almost nobody there. And again, completely separate event from Charlottesville. Not the same thing. And just the way he describes these people as literally like monsters, right? And, hey, again, I do not agree with them, but come on. Like, we have extremist Muslims march like in Dearborn, Michigan all the time. And they're saying all kinds of crazy stuff. The media's not there to record them and then to constantly put that video out. Oh, look at these people, their veins bulging with hatred. You never see that when it's Muslims marching. And I'm not saying this to dismiss, what the Muslims are saying or what these guys are saying that, oh, they're good people or anything. I'm not. I'm just saying that clearly when the media wants to focus on a group and make that group the enemy and a monster and to focus all anger on, they can do that. And when they want to bury an actual real monster that's, compared to these guys is a much larger group, okay, they can do it. And you're seeing it here. And again, this is a good example of Democrat media coordination. Let's continue.
Chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s.
Can you hear me?
And they were met by a courageous group
can
of
you hear me?
Americans.
Yeah.
And a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman lost her life.
Well, okay, so they're like, oh, a brave young woman lost her life. She did lose her life. I don't know if I call her brave. I mean, she was there with a group of violent leftist communists their only goal was to disrupt another group's freedom of speech with violence. Okay. I get that the group was a bunch of bad people, but they weren't hurting anybody. They had a permit. They were exercising their freedom of speech. And, you know, when I was growing up, there was always a saying, I can disagree with what you're saying, but I will defend to my death your right to say it. That's what Americans used to believe. So when you hear guys like Biden, and he'll say it here in a minute, this is not who we are. This is not who we... Okay, well, guess what? Antifa and what Antifa did there is not who we are either, but they frame that group as courageous Americans. And I'll just bring in real quick here because he's here finally. The man, the myth, the legend, Robert Noir. What's up, buddy?
Not much. Sorry, I was out doing house business, looking at a house.
That's all right.
Yeah, this is a great topic. You're absolutely right. Talking about Heather Heyer specifically, like we know for and Black Lives Matter swarmed on him, the narrative wouldn't be, this person was a noble person that was standing up against the bigotry of Black Lives Matter. The narrative would be, well, what did you expect? You showed up at a rally with a bunch of people that you knew would hate you. So, I mean, it is tragic that she died, don't get me wrong, but it's been used as an excuse to excuse the violence from people on her side for months and even years afterwards. And now we see actual violence occurring on the other side that's being excused.
Right. Yeah, and it's like the only reason it's allowed to happen is because the media allows it to happen. And Joe Biden, it's like this guy gets to come out and he gets to spew this crap, and there's no counterpoint. You know, it just pisses me off.
Yeah, and I heard what you were saying. You're absolutely right about how Biden's saying that somehow Trump was saying that he was okay with Nazis or something like that. And you made an excellent point. In fact, I didn't hear if you specifically said this, but Trump gave 3 speeches after this. And all 3 speeches, he directly said that there's no place in this country for bigotry. Now, his first speech, he didn't use the name neo-Nazi or KKK, but he said we must reject all racism and bigotry. He specifically named neo-Nazis and the KKK in his second and third speech. But the narrative that was being spun after the first speech, it wasn't that initially it wasn't, well, he didn't condemn the KKK. The narrative was, how dare he say there were violent people on the other side? But he was absolutely right. There were violent people on the other side.
Yeah, and he started going off about that. He's like, you saw the pictures. You saw in that same. And real quick, you said there was 3 different speeches, and I think that's where a lot of the media kind of gets their spin on it. They try to say, oh, well, later he came out once he realized he'd stepped in it and he corrected himself. No, and you know, I even heard Ben Shapiro say that same thing on his show today. And I was kind of blown away by it. I'm like, no, that's not true. And then he went on to show the clip. He's like, well, this is the clip of the press. And in the clip of the press conference, he's saying that he was in support of the people who were defending the statues. And Shapiro even said on his show, he's like, well, if he had been talking about the people and explained that he was talking about those people, then I'd agreed with him. It's like, he did. That was that press conference, that first press conference.
Like Shapiro a lot.
Yeah, me
but
too.
He does this often. It was the same with the Roseanne thing. He was quick to say, well, Roseanne should be fired. But then anytime anyone on the left says something, he says, oh, they shouldn't be fired, which, by the way, I agree with him on that stance. But he always wants to go harder off people that are basically standing up or supporting Trump. And yeah, I think that he's fundamentally wrong here. In fact, one of the arguments I got into with a lot of people after this is, like you were saying earlier, well, no one would stand with Nazis. That's not true at all. There were 2 groups specifically that came out afterwards and said that they were standing on the side of not removing the statues. The first group is just people in general who maybe didn't know exactly who was putting on this rally, but was for leaving up these Confederate statues, which is a very reasonable thing to be for. The second group was, you had a bunch of patriot groups that were there defending free speech. And so they said, even if we don't agree with what these people are saying, they unite the right people, we defend the fact that all these armed protesters came to silence their speech. And so they stood there, and that group specifically talked at length afterwards about how the police intentionally created a conflict by marching the Unite the Right rally people through Antifa, and that's what led to these conflicts in the first place. So anyone who says, well, Trump's language was technically wrong when he said there were good people on both sides, is themselves wrong. And what it is, and I forget who it was, there was someone, a journalist who said this, that the problem is people that hate Trump take what he says very technically. And the people that support Trump take like the spirit of what he says as truth. And this is another case of that. There are people trying to find pick. They're trying to tell you, no one whatsoever that was on the side against Unite the Right was a bad person, and not one person on the side of Unite the Right was a good person. And that's just not true. Trump was making a unifying message saying there were good and bad people on both sides. We should condemn all racism, condemn all bigotry, and we should stop all violence. That's a unifying message. Juxtapose that to like Obama's message under Black Lives Matter. Remember, you had a BLM supporter that shot 4 police in Houston?
Yep. 5.
5. Oh, and Obama goes to the funeral of those police and starts saying, well, we do have to think carefully about how police treat the black community. I mean, that's outrageous. Imagine Trump showed up to the funeral of Heather Heyer and said, well, maybe she should have minded her own business. That side's wrong as well. Like it would have been the biggest news story. Trump would have probably been impeached. There would have been riots on the street. So I think what Trump was trying to do, and he is clumsy, don't get me wrong,
right,
but he was trying to say, look, we need to stop acting like there's only violence on one side. It actually comes on both sides. And anyone who watched those videos, I went through 5-6 hours of footage there and pointed out at least half a dozen to a dozen times where people against the Unite the Right people had actually started the violence in specific conflicts.
Right.
Because this is hard to explain, but it's not just like, someone throws a punch, so that justifies all violence that occurs after that. No, there was all kinds of little spurts of violence breaking out, and both sides were responsible, but both sides did have good people. And so I think Trump was absolutely right. Again, this is used to spin him as this racist, even though he specifically condemned these groups, because that's what the cultural Marxists want. White people are always bad. People defending history or the United States are bad. Christians are bad. Straight people are bad. Men are bad, etc. And so that leads to this insane where you have to pretend that people that showed up in masks with spiked clubs that are beating innocent people, those are all good people, and all the people they are beating have to all be bad.
Right. I mean, are the Democrats ever cast as like they're all communists just because there's a bunch of communists at their rallies? No, of course not. And you were talking about the police, funneling the two groups into each other. Isn't there a current case going on now, and I'm not sure if it's been concluded, but in San Jose where they did the same thing, correct?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that case, but I heard that. If you want to see someone who's very good on kind of the violence of Antifa, check out Tim Pool. He has a YouTube channel. He's a fantastic journalist. Tim Pool's someone who's left-leaning. He's not a big Trump supporter, and he kind of got his chops during Occupy Wall Street. And so that he kind of was with that group. And he is appalled that over and over and over again, when he goes to these rallies, that the mainstream news says, a bunch of alt-right people attacked a bunch of left-wing protesters. It's almost always, and I mean almost always, the exact opposite that's going on.
Exactly.
You have a bunch of people that aren't all right, like Patriot Pair Group, that are just there to have a sanctioned, they got a permit, they're allowed to have their march or protest, whatever it will be. And almost every single time Antifa shows up and starts violence. Now, you never see this the opposite way. You think what you will of Unite the Right. And I'll be the first to say, I have no tolerance for white supremacists. I have no tolerance for white identitarians. I think all identity politics is stupid. So I'm not defending that group. They suck. But that doesn't mean we should use violence against them. But think what you will against them. How many instances do you have of them showing up to like Democrat rallies or a Bernie rally or anything like that? It is ever since the time of Trump. It is.
What the hell happened? One second, Robert. I just lost all sound. I don't know what's going on. 1 second. My sound just like completely went out on you. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Can you hear me? What the hell? Hold on. I'm sorry, everybody. I do not know what is going on here. Here, I'm gonna disconnect with you, Robert, real quick, and reconnect with both of you. Hold on. And while I'm doing that, you guys watch the rest of this.
And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And in that moment, I knew the threat to this nation was unlike any I had ever seen in my lifetime. I wrote at the time that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. Well, that's even more true today. We are in the battle for the soul of this nation. I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation, who we are. And I cannot stand by and watch that happen. The core values of this nation, our standing in the world, our very democracy, everything that has made America America is at stake.
Like, what in the hell is he talking about? Can you hear me, Robert?
Yeah, can you give me now?
I can hear you now. Are you there, SJG? Oh, man. I don't know how to... Yeah, it's putting him, like, into a separate window for some reason.
Huh.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm trying to get you into the group here so we can, like... You guys are both in the same group. Let me try to call you again, SJG.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, everybody. This is, like, just not going like it should. But, yeah, sorry. I get focused on that. Let's see. It says I'm in a video call with 2 people. Are you there, SJG?
Can you still hear
Try
me?
to talk. I'm going to try and call you both back again. Sorry, everybody. I know this is lame. Oh, there he is again. Can you hear me, Robert?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's in here with us. He should be, anyway. Well, anyway. So, one thing that was really bothering me about this video is that he's talking about... He's putting all these old black and white scenes, of, marches and... Martin Luther King. Like, what does that have to do? Like, now he's talking about now, like, we're in this battle for democracy. There's nothing even close to that happening now. So, like, what the hell is he even talking about?
Right, and there's this idea, picture this. Let's say you were someone who was alive during the civil rights movement. Like, that was a very noble thing, and you had an adversary that was worth fighting. The problem is, those adversaries don't exist anymore. So, for example, we just had, when Candace Owens was brought in front of Congress there, that was a special panel they had on white supremacy and things like that. And the problem is, those groups just don't exist that are impactful anymore. Now, sure, there will always be racists, there will always be white supremacists, there will be black supremacists, Hispanic supremacists, etc. But the problem is they need to inflate that. That's why stories like the Covington story and the Jussie Smollett story get so much attention, because the actual enemies aren't there. Like, who are the groups that are these white supremacist groups that we're supposed to be afraid of? The KKK? Neo-Nazis? They're laughed out. They have no power whatsoever. They're laughed out of any setting they're in. And people might fear them, but no one takes them seriously. Their numbers are down, like, in the small thousands. These aren't the impactful groups. Now, the KKK, when it was a Democrat entity, when you're talking about the turn of the 20th century, yeah, that was a group that had a lot of influential power politically, economically. Nowadays, they're a joke. No one takes them seriously. And so they need to harken back to this idea of, well, we're going to show videos of MLK and we're going to show videos of Jim Crow and act like that's what we're fighting today. And it's actually the exact opposite. If you take MLK's message seriously to judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin, that is antithetical to what the Democratic Party and the progressives do. They want to treat everyone based on the color of their skin as opposed to the content of their character.
Absolutely. And something else about that is, they're actually helping. When this all first started, it occurred to me right away. It's like, I've never seen these people, like Richard Spencer. Oh, there he is. I knew he was going to show up.
Oh,
But,
okay, cool.
It occurred to me that Richard Spencer, I never had heard about him up until, he started, until the media started giving him all this attention. So it's like the media, if anybody is helping these groups, it's the media. It's going to swell their ranks.
And Richard Spencer's came out that, like, him and there's other people that are kind of famous in his group. I can't think of any of their names right now. But they came out and said the best thing that ever happened to them was the media and Black Lives Matter. that drove up their registration and their awareness.
Well, one thing that I heard Richard Spencer say too was that one of the white supremacy groups I was listening to today on the news saying how they didn't go at Trump because basically they said, well, at least he wasn't, he didn't come at us. It's like he pretty blatantly disavowed them. I don't understand why Biden is spinning this lie and having anybody believe it anymore.
Well, and you know what? Something else, real quick. I want to jump over to it because it's another topic that'll get us all riled up, I'm sure. But it's piggyback on it. In this video, he's like, we have to disavow hate. Okay, so who did Joe Biden hire today or sometime this week for his campaign? Simone Sanders from CNN. He hired for his campaign. She used to be on Bernie Sanders' campaign. I mean, do we all know what Simone Sanders is known for? I mean, she's one of the most hate-filled, racist people on TV. She. When that white kid was kidnapped and tortured by the black teens live on Facebook as they, accosted him with racial slurs, she said that wasn't a hate crime. And then you got these white people that were getting pulled out of their cars and beaten up by these black thugs. There was video of it. And her response to that was, oh, poor white people. So this is the person that he brings on to work on his campaign when he claims to be against hate.
Right.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Go ahead, SJ.
No, go ahead. I agree.
It goes to show this is part of the Democratic, and I think this comes from academia that's so left-wing and so progressive at this point, where they understand, if you go back and you read your Plato and your Socrates, understand the power of controlling terms and controlling definitions. And this is exactly what we see happening here. For example, on the Russiagate situation, what does it mean to spy? When Trump said his campaign was spied on, they say, oh, no, he was just clandestinely surveyed. It's like, yeah, that's fine. It's the same thing here. They define hate, and the way they're defining hate and racism is it can only come from one direction. And so we actually see that the most hate-filled people are the people that are out there spewing that we need to stop hate speech. And this is a perfect example of this. So mentally challenged, or I won't say mentally, someone who had mental disabilities, this white kid that was attacked and was cut open by black people because of Trump, they said on the live stream or whatever, and the people that were pulled out of cars, that's deemed acceptable. That's not hate crimes. Those are people that basically had it coming. Why? Well, because of cultural Marxism. Their content of their character doesn't matter. All that matters is the groups they belong to. They happen to be white, and therefore they deserve the punishment that they get. That is the definition of hate. And I'm not saying that that Joe Biden is as bad as that. But if you're going to have a campaign that's specifically about stopping divisiveness and stopping hatred, then you need to have a little self-awareness by the people that you hire to be part of your staff.
Right. Don't promote Antifa, who's most known. They became most known using violence to shut down Ben Shapiro events. A Jewish man. It's like, what? And here's what I was talking about earlier. I'll just throw it up here real quick for those of you who
dragged a poor white guy out of a car and beat him.
Oh my goodness, poor white people.
You voted Trump! You voted Trump!
And on that, as you're getting that ready, the Antifa thing is crazy to me because they get no play. They get no play. I wrote a song. That was one of the first parody songs I wrote was my MAGA song, Make Antifa Go Away.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And they are absolutely insulated. They get all the pass in the world, but you have a group called Patriot Prayer here in the Portland area who is coined as this racist alt-right group who's the leader of it is Japanese American, right? He's not even a white guy. It's multicultural. They have black people in their in the Patriot Prayer and so on and so forth. And they get accosted, just literally piss thrown on them, shit thrown on them. Sorry, Cindy. They get spit on, sprayed with mace because they are simply trying to exercise their constitutional rights, and yet they're the ones who are coined as the racist, fascist, alt-right, hate mongering group. All the while, Antifa, who even in their their by rules, if you will, their constitutional laws, they get anything goes for them. When it's against a fascist, anything goes, and all they have to do is then just name a group of fascists, and then it's fair game.
That's the insidiousness of all of this, is that they can just just call anybody they don't agree with a fascist and a Nazi. And I always try to remind people the Bush years were very similar to this. They were calling him a Nazi and a fascist. It was very similar to this, not quite as ramped up as it is now, but it's like what's happening now is just like the revision of the playbook that they used during the Bush years, which is why I get really annoyed, not to go off on a tangent here, about Bush coming out against Trump. It's like, you asshole. Like, we all defended you against these same attacks when you were president, and then you turn around and you defend the media doing it to another guy. That's what fuck.
And the funny thing is, when you see situations like this, people always want to take hyperbolic statements, say, well, if we allow this, then you'll give some crazy example. We've already seen the craziest example. I mean, this sounds made up. This sounds like something out of a dystopian book, but we have seen black adult racist attacking children for 2 hours, and the media blames the white children because of the color of the hat they had on.
Right.
Like, you can't make that up.
Like, when you see what actually happened there, like, the kids were exemplary, and yet, and it was actually the Native Americans and the black people were the racist.
Yes,
I mean, they were straight up racist.
The narrative is, there was the reason that story spun so fastly was it checked all of the boxes for these identitarian politics. You had an elderly Native American gentleman. You know, it doesn't get more oppressed than that.
Yeah, and do you remember what he was? Do you remember his title, official title, Robert?
He was the keeper of the sacred pipe, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that? Yeah. Yeah, I did enough. You have no idea how my anger at that guy, like, it's just, it's unbelievable. And
no, that was the left's wet dream because like you said, they were white. They were very privileged. They were white, Catholic going kids. So not only were they privileged on the, money to go to Catholic school, they were Christians, right? So it just was like the left went berserk nuts over that one. And that one was so awesome to blow up in their face. But then they didn't backtrack it. I mean, they didn't put nearly as much effort into retracting all the damage they did. And thus they're getting their ass sued. How's that lawsuit coming anyways?
There hasn't been much more other than when it was initially announced. I know that CNN's being gone after, as is the Washington Post. I think Kathy Griffin. There were some specifically named people, but I haven't heard any results. I'm sure it'll take a long time to settle, but hopefully they win because that kid's life's, going to be affected the rest of his life. That's what he's going to be known for.
Yeah, and real quick, for those of you who don't know, who might be watching, new viewers, I actually went to the protest, the Antifa protest of Covington, and I actually called out one of their spokespeople while he was being interviewed for, Nathan Phillips telling the kids to go back. Well, it wasn't Nathan Phillips. It was somebody that was with his group telling him to go back to Europe, and this was the response. How do you feel about Nathan Phillips' group telling the kids to go back to Europe?
It wasn't Nathan Phillips.
It's on video. It's on video.
That's not true.
It is. It's on the 2-hour video. Can you give us a source on that? It's a guy in Nathan Phillips' group.
Oh, I think there's a lot of recording equipment. That's not what you said.
It is. I was recording it too, so I could show you. Yeah, and the people were like denying that he did it, but Breitbart actually caught that too and did a little clip of it, which I always thought was cool. But yeah, I mean, it just shows that. It doesn't matter. Like, the reality doesn't matter. As long as the media is the way it is, we are going to be living in an alternate reality that's created by them.
Right. Yeah. And the shame of it is, like, we have the opportunity. Like, when you talk about privilege, in a sense, we are privileged in that we have the time and the means to be able to look into this stuff. But your average person that's maybe working 9 to 5, what do they know about that story? Only what the late night comedians say and what the news says. And so they have no idea, for example, and even right-wing news sources, I didn't see hammer this point home as much as I would like. You had a group of black adults that were screaming homophobic and some of the most vile racist crap you can scream at these kids. Nathan Phillips said in an interview immediately afterwards that these kids heard some harsh truths and that's why they were upset, because of these harsh truths they were hearing. All you have to do is reverse the skin colors on that and have a bunch of neo-Nazis screaming at some black children or Native American children about how they're inferior and making homophobic slurs to them, and then have someone standing on the sidelines going, yeah, those are some reasonable, harsh truths that those KKK members are shouting at those black kids. You would never say that. It would be outrageous. But because Nathan Phillips was Native American, then he's allowed to do this. And this is the danger is that when we set each other up in this tribal type mentality, then it's hard for free speech and for reasonable discourse to occur, because there are a lot of people that legitimately believe that based on the color of your skin, you're either good or evil. And so any conflict you have, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong ethically. All that matters is, well, which boxes do you check off as far as gender, race, sexuality? And if you check the wrong ones, then you deserve violence. Yeah. It's really a scary thought.
And the whole thing, like you mentioned with cultural Marxism and intersectionality, is that they don't believe you can even have a discussion with people of varying power groups, right? And they don't believe in dialogue. It's literally in the tenets of this ideology, which is, cultural Marxism gets thrown around. And so I've been like reading it lately, and there's everyone on the left. I find it interesting that everyone on the left who really practices cultural Marxism is, in essence, says that made up term that was been made very popular by, Jordan Peterson, Hicks, some of these other modern day, intellectuals, that's a made up term. And it's like, are you kidding me right now that you who says there's no sex, there's no binary, there's no up is down, down is up, backwards
socialism's
is forward.
Not socialism.
Right. Yeah. All that you're going to tell me that the cultural Marxism is a made up term, and that, that we can't see application of Marxist ideology in this neo-cultural Marxism, this movement going on. We can't call that out because that is a conspiracy theory, but you can say anything that you want and say nothing exists and there is no truth. And that's perfectly acceptable.
Right, and this goes back to the idea. They understand academically the power of controlling the definition of terms. And so one of the things I try to do when I'm discussing this with people that maybe don't pay attention to it, don't have the time as much as I do, because I live in rural Pennsylvania. Most of the people I'm talking to are like, yeah, whatever, I don't watch the news. And they just hear, in general, what's a little bit of what's on the mainstream news. I just try to take the definitions out of it. So all I say is this. There are a group of people that think it's okay for black adult racists to yell at children or kids that are white, period. You can use whatever term you want to say, well, my ideology justifies that. It doesn't matter to me. Also, you can call it what you want. That ideology is bad. I will default to the ideology of people like MLK, who said, we don't care what color you are. Those groups don't matter. What matters is you as an individual. What's in your heart? What are the actions you're taking? That's what I want to be for. And I don't care what you could call it, cultural Marxism, intersectionality, radical feminism, whatever they want to call it. It's terrible. The same with socialism, by the way. We hear Bernie saying he's a democratic socialist. That's different than socialism. Never mind the fact that we could find audio of him all the way back from the 70s endorsing all sorts of things like state ownership of all capital and things like that, which actually is pure socialism. But all I say is this, fine, call the term whatever you want. Here's what they want to do. They've endorsed a plan that says getting rid of cars within the next 12 years is a necessity. That's it. Like, let's just break it down that simple. You could call that whatever you want. You could call it democratic socialism, but that is a radical change in the lives of each individual that I've ever met that uses things like automobiles, and they're going to be under the boot of a government that tells them that they no longer have the freedom to drive. You can call that democratic socialism, Robert, communism, authoritarian. It doesn't matter what they want to call it. And the only reason they get away with it is because they control all of these institutions. That's why they need to squeeze their fist and try to keep, like, demonetize Dronetek and things like that. Because they can't have it getting out there, an alternative voice that's like, this stuff's crazy.
Yeah, well, they're going to be, though, you don't understand, Robert. They're going to be very loving and compassionate and caring, and they're going to have all the power, but they're going to wield it for the first time ever in all of humanity with a just and pure motive of heart. So that's the part you're missing.
Thank goodness.
Well, I think it was Milton Friedman. And I'm going to butcher this quote, but Milton Friedman's a fantastic economist, endorser of capitalism. And he says something, I'm going to butcher this, but he basically says, beware the well-intentioned person that seeks power, because they're the most dangerous person there is. Everyone, like, do you really think that Mao or Stalin, of course you two don't, but like, do people really think that Mao and Stalin got in and was like, hey, I want to get into power so I could butcher people? No, they originally thought, hey, I have the best ideas. I could create a utopia. The problem is each individual stumbling block on the way to that more and more force, until eventually we're killing 50 million Chinese people, or we're starving 6 million, Ukrainians. to the point where there had to be signs. There were signs that were hung up in the Ukraine and the Soviet Union that said, no matter how hungry you get, don't eat your children. That's how terrible things got there. And Mao and Stalin never thought they were villains. They thought they were achieving a utopia. That's the exact same way that people. Now, am I saying that Bernie or AOC is going to be that bad? No, not initially. But if once you get that authoritarian itch, you just keep scratching until it gets worse and worse. And even if they're not that bad, guess what? There's Jordan Peterson says this all the time. Even if you do get the one authoritarian Marxist that would actually be a good person that would look out for people, guess what? The power of the state at that point being authoritarian, someone in the wings will just take that person out with violence. And the exact worst person that you don't want having power will be the person that rises to the top and ends up with that power.
Right. And they want to give kids all this power now, like this 16-year-old girl that they're parading around everywhere who's like, we need to do whatever it takes to stop climate change or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
This little girl.
I don't know her name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
But,
the irony is they'll parade her out, right? But you can't criticize her, just like David Hogg.
No, right.
Well, right. They love people. They love people who they think are above criticism. But my point here is that by getting kids to do these things, I feel like you're even. For one, we already know that we should not trust these people because of how hypocritical and contradictory that they are. We can tell they don't have any real principles, right? Like we were just talking about all this racial stuff. It's clear they don't have an actual principle like we do. The three of us, I think, are consistent. I don't hate anybody because of their skin color, and I don't want to treat people differently based on the skin. They don't agree with that. They come up with rationalizations to do that to other groups. And in the same way, like you get these kids, right? And these kids are going to be extremists. You start letting kids make the decisions. I mean, did anybody read Lord of the Flies? I mean, that wouldn't go well. Or Children of the Corn. I mean, these kids.
Well, there's a reason why we don't let a brand new kid who just got his license have anybody else in their car for the first year. They have to drive by themselves. But they're going to be old enough to vote and go, and make decisions for our country that they have no clue or understanding of yet.
And they're just parroting. Like, I don't want to be too overarching here, but the majority of these kids you see, I don't think that they're have experience in life where they've led them to believe the positions they have. I think a lot of it's just parroting the people around them in life. And so they know that they're going to get a certain amount of celebrity and attention by saying the right viewpoint. I mean, they're smart in that sense. You know what I mean? Like David Hogg knows he's not going to become a celebrity. He's not going to become a household name. If he just is like, hey, I suffered this terrible tragedy, I really don't want to talk to you. It's a very complicated issue. Mm-hmm. Instead, if he makes it extreme and starts, notice how he would do things like he would curse and swear. But that's what they want to see, this kind of what they consider righteous indignation that says there is no debate. And you're exactly right, Jerome. That's what they're doing. By setting kids up there, they could say, oh, and you can't challenge these kids. And it's another way of saying there is no debate. This is what they do with climate change all the time. They say, there's no debate. If you don't agree with us, then you clearly don't care if people die. And that's absurd. There's clearly plenty of debate to go on.
There's a very clear pattern emerging there. Like you just said. I mean, look at everywhere. All they're trying to do is stifle debate, stifle opposition at all.
That's right. And most of the time, and again, this could be a pendulum. You could see this swing back in 20, 30 years. I don't know.
Oh, I think you will.
Most of the time what you see right now is almost universally, particularly when it comes to academic and politics, people on the right actually encourage and facilitate debate. And that's because we're used to our ideas being challenged all the time. Yes. So we've honed our ideas, we've honed our arguments. But the people on the left have never been challenged. That's not to say there can't be good ideas on the left. I'm not saying that. But they know that they, as situated now, can't win many of these arguments. Like, they will not win in the court of public opinion or just factually that you should have abortions up until the moment before labor. They won't win that argument.
And this is why when you see these when you see these videos where they go to universities and ask them questions. I don't know if you've seen these videos of that long-haired curly girl that had that she got famous for she did her graduation pictures with an AR-15. I can't think of her name.
Caitlin or something. She worked Caitlin,
Caitlin.
Kate,
So she's been doing a series of videos. And she's been her latest one. She's asking people if they support giving voting rights to terrorists and rapists. And these people she asks don't know what to say. And it's like,
Right.
They're not
because they know they know like I'm supposed to say yes, but there's a cognitive dissonance going on in their brain. Like this no way this is right, but I can't say it isn't. It's kind of like what happened to, in some regard, it's kind of like what happened to Como when he was just on that recent video you just did, where he was just like, there the cognitive dissonance of him like, I'm getting called on the carpet and I have no real good response to this. Just going and every time he said a talking point, it got shut down. That's, it's the same phenomenon.
And this is why when these people do these interviews, why you can go up to a right winger. And it's just like Robert said, like, we're trained for this. I don't know about you guys. I've been arguing and debating on the internet since like the early 2000s, earlier than that even. I mean, I was on bulletin boards arguing with people before that. But it has always been a knockdown, drag out fight for us, always. And that's something I've noticed, is that more and more people on the left, they're not good at debating. They can't win arguments, which is why I think you're seeing this move by them to insulate themselves from debate. Right.
Yeah, that's again, going back to the idea of cultural Marxism, all of that has to do with like kind of postmodernist philosophy, and postmodernists don't believe in truth. They don't think in fact, you're starting to see this seep into even the sciences, the STEM fields, where they'll say things like facts are white supremacist or they're patriarchal and things like that. Yep. And they're saying that the actual idea of using facts is racism or it's patriarchy. And so they don't believe that debate is good. They think debate's just a power struggle, and the way to win is to not debate. Silence your opponent, and therefore you win.
That's so insane.
Right.
No, it's literally, that's literally their, but that's literally in their, if you want to say bylaws, that's what they say. They're like, you don't debate. You don't debate. You can't have discussion with varying classes of power. And if someone doesn't recognize they're in that class of power, the white privilege class, whatever privilege class they want to say you're in, if you don't recognize that, you're still in it. Thus, you're in a different power group. Thus, we aren't going to talk with you. It's literally in their ideology.
Right. And there's been good studies that smarter people than me have looked at this. And basically, if you talk to one or two people that have this mentality, and I don't mean the people that, because Jordan Peterson says this all the time, the people that are the academics that were the postmodernists, like Michel Foucault, or like today you have Spanos, you had these type of people. They're very smart. They might be able to out-argue me on this stuff one-on-one. But most of the people that believe this stuff have no idea what they're talking about. And what happens is if you could talk to one or two of them, it's not as indoctrinated. But as the group grows, then, and that's what you're seeing with the entertainment industry, academia, the mainstream media, Silicon Valley, the more of these people that come to collective, it's like the Borg or something, where now all of a sudden they're just re-entrenched in their belief of nothing. It's like sort of this nihilism. We don't believe in truth. But when you have a bunch of people just screaming, yeah, we agree with you, and the other people arguing with you are bigots, then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, you feel, it's like a mob mentality.
Right,
and we're in this ridiculous situation now where there are fundamental truths that it is now considered non-politically correct, and it could.
Right. Right, and this is kind of off point, but it's kind of with what you were saying. The whole thing, like we were talking about Trump and spying earlier. All the media admitted that the UK spied on Trump for months. They were all admitting that. But then Trump comes out recently, says the UK was spying on him, and the media all comes out and says he's lying. I don't know did you notice that?
And again, the best example of this, was specifically with that is Comey came out and was interviewed, and someone actually asked him, even though it was in a polite setting, which I would be, less polite with him. But anyways, they asked him, they said, well, you said there was no spying on Trump, but there were these wiretaps. You did send Stephen Halper in. And Comey says, well, I never really considered sending in agents or wiretaps to be spying. I considered it surveillance. And
I considered it undetected electronic surveillance. That's what we called it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're seeing with this, with the England spy. We know, in fact, they brag. It wasn't just, we actually had our allies that were getting information and getting calls from Trump and people connected to him. And now when it's like, oh, Trump wasn't a Russian agent, so let's go back to England spying on us again. Oh no, we never said that. We never said they. And it's a lie. And the problem is that lie gets legs because the average person doesn't look into it. They just see, oh well, geez, the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and MSNBC, they all said there was no spying, so there must have been no spying. And that's not true at all. There absolutely was.
Yeah. And I don't want to get. I kind of want to get back to what we were talking about because I think that's a really interesting topic. But yeah, and this is getting back to what we were talking about. This is what is so dangerous about these people. I always talk about that how they rationalize everything, and they're always the fact that they are antithetical to debate now. Like that's dangerous. Like where is that going to lead us? That it seems to me the only place that road takes us is violence.
Yeah. Complete authoritarianism and violence. You either get on board with what we say, or you are going to be the one that we silence in one way or another. And I mean, the actual throwing us into,
gulags.
Putting a bullet, gulags, or putting a bullet in our head. That'll probably come eventually, but it's what the new modus operandi is that they just simply completely destroy your name, completely destroy your reputation, make it so that you get fired, make it so that you can't, and completely make it so you can't do anything online. They take away your financial, like they did with you, demonetized, like they've done with others, where even PayPal and these other payment processing places, they take those away. I mean, they just literally leave you completely destitute, of any way to be able to. They kill you in essence.
Right, and that all ties into the candidates that they pick. I always said back when Obama got elected, I was actually, I'm a Republican, but when Obama first came around, I'm like, he seems like an okay guy. I might, we'll see what he had to say. I was open to him, but then obviously later it became obvious I couldn't be with him. But I knew back then, I could tell right off the bat that they were going to call anybody that criticized him a racist, which is what happened. And they're already starting that with the candidates, with all these. That's why they don't want a white man. Because they want somebody they could just be like, oh, you're a racist, you're a sexist, or whatever else. And this is getting us to a point where people aren't, once they take away your ability to dissent, what else is left?
Right.
Not saying I'm going to do that. I would never be violent, no matter what.
Right.
Well,
Rational Wrong Think on the chat said exactly, this is exactly summing it up. If you stop dissenting voices, you create dissenting actors. That's absolutely true. And what's happening is, you can see, like, I talk about this all the time. We basically have 4 cultural institutions of power. And what I mean by that is that shape our public discourse, basically. You have the mainstream media, you have academia, you have the entertainment industry, and along with that, like athletics, and you have Silicon Valley. And all of those are heavily controlled by the Democratic Party, the establishment Democratic Party. And so what you see is, when you see all these comments about fake news and stuff that you saw after 2016, it was all directed towards conservative voices primarily. Or if you want to be really technical, anti-democratic establishment voices. Because there are people on the left that are also getting censored in this sense too, but definitely far less. Anyways, the point is, once you take, and we know this throughout history over and over and over again, like, once you silence people so much that they literally can't have a voice in public, then it is inevitable that they act out, and that action will be some sort of violence. Well, and as we talked about last week, that's exactly what they're hoping for, because they know once the first example, just look at the Jussie Smollett case. That was a lie, but look at the play that got. Any small action of violence, no matter how justified.
Imagine if it wasn't a lie.
Exactly. So if even justified violence or justified violent rhetoric can be condemned the way it is by these establishment Democrat people and all these institutions, imagine what will happen when there's actual violence. They're going, they will control the narrative such that then they will demand even exponentially more violence against the people. And so a good example of that would be this guy who just got arrested with this militia, right? So he went down and was rounding up supposedly illegal immigrants. I don't know the specifics of what their group was doing, but he was arrested. And then all the news stories said, oh, he said his group was training to assassinate Hillary and Obama. But then when you look in the details, he never said that. Someone alleged that a tip to the FBI alleged that he said that. But the point I'm trying to make is just quite simply that they will justify any way whatsoever to turn you into a monster if you try to engage in any sort of violence because your voice is being silenced. And it's going to get really bad.
even on that story, it actually gets worse than what you just said. I read in on that story a little bit. It turns out this old 1969-year-old Vietnam vet a year prior had been arrested for threats that he and some other people in his group had allegedly made, that they had some high-end, Democrats and high-end people that they were trying to, Obama, Hillary, George Soros were on their list to quote unquote assassinate, but it was never proven. And it was a year prior. So then we flash forward to what just happened on the border, where the Minutemen militia were down there with approval from the Border Patrol. They were making citizens arrests, and they were getting illegals, holding them, and then handing them off to the Border Patrol. And that's when the FBI came in and arrested this guy for, I believe, a gun violation, because he had been arrested, and so he technically had a felony. And so all these, militiamen with guns around, even though the militia guys say he didn't have a gun, he was our cook. But since there was guns in his parameter, that's why they arrested him for that. So, I mean, but one other thing on that, when I was driving in today, listening to the sound clips about, and I got laid in on the chat, but I had already heard this earlier with Biden's, whole spiel for announcing presidency. It literally did give me a little bit of shivers, because I'm like, man, he is stoking the fires for a full on war here in America, because
he even showed the troops like landing on the beaches.
Yeah, he's completely lying about what Trump said. That's already been debunked. And what I don't get, they literally think their voter base or their demographic is so stupid that they don't understand that Trump explicitly,
are they wrong?
Explicitly made a line that I am not supporting white supremacists, but he's still carrying on this lie, and most people now aren't going to look into the facts, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure the majority of people that are on the left think that is a reality when it's not. And so if Trump does win again, and the other rhetoric what's the next video that Biden's going to put out, but who knows what it's going to be. But my point is this: he's stoking the fires so much to where all it's going to need is a spark. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes back to what Robert pointed out that Rational said. If you hush the dissenting voices, then the dissenters become, or the dissenting voice becomes dissenting action. And it's scary. It's kind of worrisome, quite frankly.
Right, because none of us would probably do anything. I mean, if something really bad happened to start going, I had to defend my family, I would. But we know that there are people out there that will take action if it comes to that. Especially when they start messing with the Second Amendment. You got guys like Swalwell out there saying he'll nuke Americans who don't give up their guns. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. I don't even know.
And the irony is, and as always, one of the things that interests me, and I think that you can speak to the regular people the most about to show the egregiousness of this, is their double standards. And so, for example, my dog's being a meat idiot.
You're okay.
We know.
I'm grabbing a drink. AFK a minute.
They, for example, when Trump came out and put a video out of Omar's comments, some people did some things about 9/11. They said, well, that's incitement to violence, right? But then when you remember the Ed Gillespie ad for his election, for the 2018 election, where it's one of the worst political ads I've ever seen, where it just is this faceless kind of white guy in a hoodie wearing a red hat that's supposed to be a MAGA hat, driving a big truck, and he's chasing these diverse kids down the street and gets them in a corner, and he's got a "Make America Great Again" sticker on the back of his truck, and he's going to run over these kids. That's what they're saying, but they don't consider that incitement to violence. Now, if you then protest that and you say, my God, that's grotesque. How could you say something like that? How could you do something like that? Now, that's you inciting violence. And one of the things Ben Shapiro gets right, he always talks about how if Republicans do something bad, then the story is Republicans do something bad. If Democrats do something bad, then the story is Republicans pounce on Democrats. And that's exactly what we see happening. It's this constant double standard. We were already talking about it in the terms of racism and hatred. Now we can see it in the terms of incitement to violence. We can see about it in terms of, literally anything. Like you could write a book on all the instances of double standards, just even at the very minutia level of politics. For example, when the government shut down under Obama, it was the Republican Congress's fault. When the government shuts down under Trump, it's not the Democratic Congress's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's literally that story over and over again. And there's just this confirmation bias because they control all these institutions of power where they're able to convince people that that's true, even though any objective person could see that that's not the case.
I'm back. What are you guys talking about?
Oh, I didn't even know you left.
Oh, I did. I just went. I had to do a bathroom break. You guys must not have heard me.
One thing that Rational put up there, he said, "How did Trump not react to Mexican soldiers entering the U.S. and disarming U.S. soldiers? Trump seems depressingly weak in action at times." I feel kind of like that a little bit, but I also think that, man, it was bad, but it also was. They reversed it quickly, and I'm in some ways glad we didn't turn that into a bigger deal than it was for that scenario, because of that would have just completely been a huge another blow up and distraction. You know what I mean? Like that would have got spun. We would have been unweaving that mess for a while. But I do get your point, Rational, on that. But I also am like, I think it's probably because it wasn't more egregious. I don't know. I guess it was kind of egregious. I don't know.
But who knows what the details of that story, like, I'm sorry that this is going to come off as like kind of nihilistic politically, but I don't know who we could trust anymore when it comes to our intel and law enforcement agencies at the national level like that. I don't mean the cops in my town or the average FBI, person who's in the FBI, but at the leadership level. So when I heard that story, I was like, yeah, that probably happened, but you could also see this being spun, right? That, in other words, how do we know if this really happened? I don't know. And certainly it seems, at least at this point, as if the new leader of Mexico, even though he seems more socialist, he seems to at least being giving lip service to the idea that he's going to try to stop these caravans while they're in Mexico. Yeah. So if Trump comes out and he's just like guns a-blazing, like, oh, that's it. Mexican troops on our side of the border. That's it. Now we're just going to we're going to light up any Mexican soldier we see on our side of the border. That could, further strain those relations. And that's something with Trump. Yeah. And that's something with Trump that I think that people don't understand. One of the things that aggravates me to no end, and I don't see any pushback on this, is even Ben Shapiro say this. I'd love to debate him on the Russia investigation, but he says, well, maybe though at the onset of the Russia investigation, it was legitimate because there were all these like kind of factors that made you think something was going on. For example, Trump said nice things about Putin. Yeah, so that doesn't mean he deserves to be spied on. And secondly, we can see that Trump's trying to do that because he knows that basically if you're kissing up to people, particularly people, international adversaries, you have a better chance of having diplomacy with them. And so I think that could apply at the Mexican border as well, where you got a new president. He's, ushering a wave of populism in his own right. Even though it's populism on the left, I think Trump could outreach to him and say, look, we're with you. We're tired of like kind of the way things have been going, whether it be cartels or, the deep state in our country. So we should work together. So maybe that's what he was thinking, though. I don't know, to be honest.
So I want to postulate a couple questions here. I have 2 points, not related, but I would like to talk about them.
Yeah.
Point number one is, why did no one push back? I didn't hear it, but the only thing I kept thinking about when Bernie in this recent town hall, and I think Kamala Harris said it also, or maybe it was Chieftain Warren, but they said about the whole felons and violent criminals being allowed to vote and getting their rights back. So my question is, okay, why hasn't anybody posed the question, so are you in support of them getting their Second Amendment rights back too? Like that would have been a question I would have liked to ask them.
Actually, she's been asking people that question. The girl I was talking about earlier.
Caitlin, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's a great question. What about the rest of your rights, right? Well, if you could have the right, if that needs to be instated, what about, like, say, your Fourth Amendment rights, search and seizure? Right? So while you're in prison, the guards have no right to search your cell, right?
Yeah, good point.
They don't even have a right in the investigation of you to search you. Right?
Right.
It's on face value. It is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I'm saying that as someone, I think one of the greatest shames in our country is our treatment of prisoners. And I'm not saying the Boston bomber and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But the fact that we have, it's a joke that if you go to prison, there's a good chance you'll get raped. And that it's more punitive instead of trying to rehabilitate people. I think
inmates need love too, bro. Inmates need love too.
And don't get me wrong, I'll laugh at jokes and stuff. But I'm just saying that we should fix our prison system. However, giving people the right to vote while they're in prison is absurd. I live in rural Pennsylvania. It's a large state prison about an hour away from me. I think it's in Marionville. Literally, a large portion of the population of that town is that prison. If they have the right to vote, they'll vote. They'll be able to control who the sheriff is, who the warden of the prison is, what local ordinances and things like that are.
I mean,
that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, you could have a group of like pedophile people who got out of prison for molestation getting together in big groups, lobbying groups even, and getting laws passed that makes it legal now. I mean, and that's a slippery slope kind of a thing, but hypothetically, under that system, you could do that. Or, the absurdity of a terrorist, a guy who's using violence for political goals, you're not going to give that man the right to vote? Like, they should have no right to vote. They were killing people, taking away their lives. So
that's
at that
all
point,
the consequence.
Right. I mean, especially murder and rape. I would say murder and rape especially. Like, you're actively taking away people's rights. So why should they then get rights at all?
Well, and I think it's kind of like what Steve, like I heard, I think it was Crowder or somebody else say it too, that, there is room for discussion on the type of crime you committed, to where once you've served your time, I don't believe when you're in, but once you're out, you should be able to receive a portion maybe of your rights back. Yeah. But there should be certain crimes like murder, violent crimes, rape, that, nope, I'm sorry, you can do your time, and if you ever get out, you live with these consequences the rest of your life because you did something to someone that they have to live with the rest of their life.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And the only thing I'd add is, remember, people will try to spin this later because understand the way the primaries are. Your incentive in the primary, whether it be Republican or Democrats, to go as far to the extreme of your party as you can. General election, you're trying to come back to center. So just remember, if Bernie would happen to win the primary, he'll come out and his supporters will say, well, he wasn't talking about the worst of the worst. That's not true. He was specifically asked about the Boston bomber. And so don't leave him and his supporters spin this as if he was just talking about people, because you're already seeing this on Twitter from people saying, well, wait a minute. AOC's campaign manager said this, for example. He said, yeah, but we know that prison system's racist and the law enforcement system's racist. So why wouldn't we give the very people affected by racist laws the power to vote? That's not what he was specifically asked. Unless they're trying to argue that the Boston bomber was only charged because of racism or something like that, then they're skirting the issue, which is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. My other thing I wanted to bring up, not that maybe we have, I think we've answered that one pretty good. The other thing I wanted to bring up was why is not the coverage of this newest caravan headed up here, the mother of all caravans? That is pretty alarming that you have how much are in it now? How many people are in it? 10,000 or
something like that, multiple thousand.
Oh, it's over. I thought it was over 100,000. Oh, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that.
The DHS,
I think it was 10.
In the past 2 weeks, the Department of Homeland Security, I was just reading this today, have released 1,400 illegal immigrants waiting to be processed into the country a day. Right. And we were told now.
Where are they going?
They're sending them all over the place. They have, for example, you saw that I think it was Yuma declared a state of emergency because they have so many people that they're trying to process that they don't have enough accommodations for them. And so, and then if you look at the numbers, because one of the things that was being said when the Democrats were saying this isn't a crisis, they said the numbers are going down. Now, it's funny how they use that interpretation there, right? For example, we know if you look at things like violence against women have been declining staggeringly over the past 50 years. Now, does that mean that any action of violence against women shouldn't be looked at? Of course not. But we're doing a good job of those numbers falling. But they think that it's horrible. They won't focus on that. It doesn't matter. As long as there's violence now, that's all that matters. But then they take the exact opposite tack when it comes to illegal immigration. They say, yes, but if you look, the numbers are steadily declining. So instead of apprehending 50-something thousand at the like we used to at the border, now it was down to 40,000. However, in the past 3 months, that number's jumped to over 100,000. And that's just apprehended, which means we have no idea how many people snuck through that were never apprehended at the border. So we've more than doubled the numbers when they said, oh, it's not a problem. So the question, and this is always the question, they'll never answer this because they're not interested in facts and logic.
And they don't care about the numbers either, because they'll go to in bajillions if you call them on it. They'll be like,
that's right,
billions.
So you could ask something real simple. Be like, yeah, I have a big heart too. How many illegals should we take before it's too many? They won't give you an answer. They don't have a number, yeah. How much is it before it's a crisis? And now if you've noticed, there's been a change. That less and less people, even in Democratic politicians in the media, are saying that it's not a crisis now. Now they're saying it's a crisis, but it's Trump's fault. That's what they're switched up to.
Yeah.
And because it's becoming so apparent now, and it's actually a loser for the Democratic Party. I mean, most people, even people that consider themselves Democrats, don't like illegal immigration. But you never hear those voices because all of these institutions are controlled by the establishment Democratic Party.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping these issues get pushed to the forefront more, like this issue of immigration, and what's going on at the border, the issue with letting felons vote, there's another main one. I'm hoping for these issues to keep getting media play, because if they keep getting media play, God bless us, I'm hoping people will be smart enough to where it's going to hurt the Democratic position. Oh, the Mueller, or the impeachment of Trump. That was the other one I was thinking of. If they keep pushing impeachment, it's only going to help at the voting booth, I think, in 2020.
Yep.
It seems that'd be the case, but I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I would like to be optimistic as well, but
it's hard. It's hard. It's because
you see people on the you want to read someone good on the Russia Gate and everything with it. Read Glenn Greenwald from The Intercept. Glenn Greenwald's as progressive as it gets. He's basically, he borderline makes excuses for Al Qaeda and ISIS. And he hates Trump. Yet even he could see how absurd this Russia Gate scandal is. And I saw him and Aaron Matei on the Jimmy Dore show, and they're saying this is the death knell for the media. You can no longer, with a straight face, endorse the Russia collusion conspiracy. And then I turn on the media the next day, and they haven't skipped a beat. And the polling, I know polling's a lie more often than not, but polls show that Trump's numbers dropped after the release of the Mueller report. Polls are showing that Biden's 8 points ahead of Trump.
It's early.
And general, so who knows what to think? I mean, can the average person even keep up with it? Or do they just know, hey, I was told by Saturday Night Live that Trump's a Russian agent and I'm going to believe it. Just would someone please tell me what Trump's done against gay people?
I know
someone give me that answer?
I know it.
Because all I hear is about how he hates gays, but,
Yeah, I know. That's the same thing I always ask. And they'll point to the trans ban in the military. But to me, it's you know what? You can't get in the military if you have tubes in your ears or bone spurs.
Diabetes, colorblindness, impaired vision. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All these little things, they seem little, but they impair the mission. You cannot tell me that somebody with gender dysphoria isn't going to impair the mission. Maybe you have some that can deal with it, but it's just such an odd thing to throw into the mix. It's why? Why would you do that? The military is a fighting force, not some sort of a petri dish for social issues, So I mean,
we're not an SJW army. At least we don't want one.
It's more than just that, and that's all true. What it would do for morale and things like that. We have difficulties just integrating women into frontline battle forces because of the problems that come with that. But it's more than that. To me, the argument's quite simple. It's that you can't get these hormones and these medications that you need if you're someone transitioning very easily if you're in Afghanistan.
Right.
And if you don't get that type of stuff, then you will suffer severe physical ailments.
Right.
And so it's the same reason as someone with diabetes. If you have to have insulin at a regular level, you're probably not going to be a Navy SEAL.
Right.
Because you're going to be in these clandestine missions where it's not easy. Now, that doesn't mean you can't serve in the armed forces in some capacity where you could get your medication or your treatment. And to my knowledge, transgenders aren't banned from everything. It's just from fighting forces, I
Right.
believe.
I think well, it might be all the military, but you might be right about that. But the point is, there's nothing about Trump that's been explicitly anti-gay or anti-black for that reason. What has he done to black people? As far as I know, their unemployment numbers are higher than they've been in recorded history. So it's
the only thing they could say is like what they say about both of them is, well, it's his rhetoric, because they can't point to policies.
What rhetoric, though?
He refused to condemn white supremacy.
Right. It always goes
That's
to
about
that,
the only
which
thing.
is fake. We know that's bullshit.
It is fake. That's right. It is. And you even see, like, you actually see people like, I actually saw Van Jones come out. I don't know if you remember who he is. He used to work for CNN.
I know Van Jones. Very familiar.
He's the one who said it was a white lash, Trump winning. But he actually came out and condemned a lot of media people after Trump signed the, what did they call it? The incarceration,
right? The
reform or whatever.
Right, the reform.
Yeah, the reform bill. And Van Jones was like, the only reason that Trump's getting crap for this is because he's Trump. Right. This is something they wanted under Obama, and Obama
and
never
like nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it. It's like the child separation thing when he tried to end it with an executive order, because it's not his policy. It was a court ruling, and so he signs an executive order to stop it, but it doesn't stop because you can't just stop a court ruling like that.
That's right.
Yet that's never taught. Nobody even knows about that.
And probably the most pro African American policy that he routinely talks about is being against illegal immigration. Right. Because guess which communities the illegal immigrations end up going into and end up competing with for jobs? Well, it happens to be inner city black communities more often than not. And so it's actually illegal immigration is disproportionately affecting low educated blacks more than any other group in this country. And so when Trump talks about his policies benefiting economically blacks in general and even legal Hispanics and things of that nature, that's in addition to the fact that he's trying to help them even more by stopping this illegal immigration. I mean, so we're talking about potentially 11 million to 24 million people in this country illegally, most of them working under the table, jobs that would have to be over the table for legal citizens that don't have high educational levels. Now, people will say, well, that's racism. You're assuming blacks have low education levels. One, no, that's just statistically the truth. And second, everyone has to start somewhere. The fact that the war on poverty coddled black people for 60, 70 years and said, you're special children that could do no wrong. Here's a bunch of free money. Yeah. That's what kept them down. And my interpretation is that it's really the Democrats that push those policies that are the racists, because they know that if they treat black people as equals within 1 or 2 generations, guess what? Black people will be just as capable as them and be taking the jobs that they want.
Right.
So instead, they have to be the overprotective mom. Oh, no, you're special. Don't worry. The world's against you.
It's all about control and power.
Country.
Yeah, and I want to say that it seems like this hysteria over white supremacy and white supremacy, or they're the biggest threat to this country, and all that stuff really started when this movement of black people over getting like red pilled or whatever you want to call it. You're seeing that more, and it seems to correlate with that. Like as black people start to sort of see that, oh my gosh, 50 years of policy have changed almost nothing. You know, maybe we need to start
50 years of policy and it's worse.
Right.
Someone explain, and I've heard smart people ask, like black activists or black, community leaders, this, if all the situation and all the bad stuff in the black community is because of slavery and Jim Crow, why are many metrics worse today, 40 years after the civil rights movement, than they were before the civil rights movement?
Yeah, that's what Jesse Peterson talks about a lot.
It's not working.
He's kind of a Jesse Lee Peterson. He's kind of a crazy dude, and he's hilarious to me. But he talks about that a little bit, and I think he's probably right. He talks about how the families were were closer and all this kind of thing, and that you could probably attribute that to just that's how they were forced to live, for a long time.
Well, and there's definitely truth to that, but I think it's so there is part of it of the. When you're facing a crisis, like, for example, takes racially out of it, like during the Great Depression, there's a lot of good evidence that families were closer and things during the Great Depression because, your hand was forced to survive. But I think that it's more than that. It is the coddling of that community afterwards. I mean, you could hear people like, I'm trying to think who it is. Larry Elder, for example. Larry Elder, brilliant black man who is a conservative, fights against this kind of PC crap.
He's been at it for a long time.
Yeah, he talks about, he remembers living as a young man in the late 60s, early 70s, where you had people from the government knocking door to door saying, hey, did you know that if you don't have 2 parents in the household, you can get a lot of free government money? And once we incentivize that single parenthood, remember in the 60s, a Democrat by the name of Moynihan put together what's called the Moynihan Report that came to the conclusion that it was a crisis and shameful of this country that 25% of black children were born out of wedlock and were in single parent homes. That number is up to 75% now. By the way, it's like 60% for white, or over 50% for whites. And so the question, like you were saying, Jesse Lee Peterson's asking is, why has it gotten worse since the civil rights movement, since the war on poverty? The only conclusion, there's only two things. Either one, people have become more racist, which is absurd, or second, these policies are having the exact opposite effect of what they're supposedly doing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's probably what's going on. But hey, guys, I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap this up. I don't know about you. I'm getting kind of worn out. We've been going for about an hour and a half here, which is maybe the longest we've gone. But
wow.
Yeah, it's that was a great show. I'm trying to get. I have a guy. I'm going to bring him on, and I want you guys to be on, all of us together. It'll be fun. I have this guy who we get in these drunken debates late at night over the weekends when we're playing games together, and I want to get him on here and just go at it. I think it could be awesome. So people watching, look forward to that, and you guys too. And if you're watching, definitely head over to SJG's channel, subscribe, head over to head over to Robert Noir's page and subscribe. We'll put the links in the chat here, but they're both awesome. That's why I bring them on every time if I can, because they're just great guys just to chat with and talk and bounce things off of. But I thank everybody for coming, and we'll do it again next Thursday.
All right, hey, have a good one.
Have a good one, everybody.
Later.
Later.